G'day everyone, and welcome to today's very special interview. I'm really excited to have Joe Valley, who is a co-owner and partner at Quiet Light Brokers, one of the world's biggest website brokers. And I'm really excited to be talking to Joe today about a recent sale that he's just done for $9 million. And you'll hear in this interview why this is a particularly exciting and inspirational story. So thanks so much, Joe, for coming on and talking to us about your recent sale.
Good to be here, Matt. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So obviously, you've been doing this now for how long? Buying and selling websites.
Buying and selling for a long time. I think the first website I launched was 1998 for $50. I've built, bought, and sold about 6 on my own, and with Quiet Light, I've touched about $500 million with a B in online exits over the last 10 years.
Okay, so you all realize Joe, as you can see, is a true professional. He knows his stuff here. He's done from the small deals right up to the big deals. And today, what I wanted to talk to you, Joe, and thanks so much for agreeing to do this interview on this particular sale. This was a $9 million sale for you at the moment in Quiet Light. Is that what in terms of the sale sizes that you're seeing out there? That's kind of, where does that sit in the scope of what you guys are doing?
At the time that we closed that, and it was our largest transaction at the time, but life is moving fast. So we've closed 2 that have been more than twice, almost 2.5 times the size of that now. And the transaction sizes just keep getting bigger and bigger. So all over the place. And I'd say, our sweet spot is very broad. Anywhere from 250,000 to 25 million is generally where we play. But this one was, just under 9, and a heck of a story. Great guy. He's become a good friend, and he's an inspiration, bottom line.
Well, that's the bit that we want to hear about too, because everyone focuses on this amazing outcome that you helped him achieve. And, I love hearing that he's become a great friend, and obviously a very inspirational story, and what you've told me about him. Do you want to give some background let's start there with the actual individual? I think that's what's so impressive with this story, his actual background.
Yeah. He's not from the States. He's not from Australia. He's actually from Denmark originally, and he was invited to drop out of high school. And you're actually required to stay in school K through 12. But he'd been kicked out of so many schools. They just said, all right, here's your degree, please be done. It's the equivalent of GED, equivalent of a degree. So he doesn't have a college education. He's, just driven. He was homeless in high school. There were some family challenges. And so he was out of a home for a while. Started a business after high school in the construction space. Ended up coming to the States for an event in Vegas, and met a girl, as things often happen, had a baby, and thought, I gotta really, straighten my stuff up here. And the marriage didn't work out. So he's a single dad. She had some issues. So he's a single dad, really living paycheck to paycheck, to the point where he was traveling and the flight was delayed overnight, like for 18 hours, and he couldn't afford a hotel. So he and his son slept in the airport because he couldn't afford a hotel room. And that was, as recent as I would say maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And his life has changed pretty dramatically since then. He had done what a lot of your folks are doing, just going on the hunt to buy a business and see if he can buy it and grow it and sell it. And the first one that he bought for a couple of $1,000s. And it didn't take him any more than 6 months to turn around and sell it. And he sold it for about $7,500. He was like, whoa, that's more money I've made in like the last year, just about. How do I do this again? So he had another opportunity, took some of that money and bought another one, a little bit larger, not much larger, because he only had $7,500. But he ended up selling that one in just about the same amount of time, another 6 months, and he sold it for 20 grand. And for him, that's a fortune, because he's still living paycheck to paycheck. He just optimized it. It was a content site. Both of these were content site. And he just really just flipped it, and just learned how to do it. And both of those were purchases. So he went out and bought another one. The third one, he ended up selling for about $220,000. And I call him, an original exitpreneur, because he figured out that you can, make more money by selling than you do by often operating these businesses. So $220,000 for him, it was life-changing. And at this point, his son is, 6 or 7 years old. And he'd learned a lot. He was really learning how to optimize websites. And it's when Facebook was really coming into its own and advertising was cheap. And he threw 5 or 6 different niches up online and started driving traffic to them through Facebook. And one of them just took off, and we'll just say it's in the entertainment space. And I don't, not the adult entertainment space, just the entertainment space.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just clarification there. And he let the others go. There were car niches and things of that nature. And he just focused on this entertainment space because the fans in this niche were just rabid fans, and they needed to consume the content every single day, which meant he had to post content every day and multiple times a day. And he really learned the Facebook ecosphere a lot, right? He spent a lot of money there, drove a lot of traffic, gave people what they wanted, helped them. And he grew to the point where he could buy his biggest competitor. There were 2 competitors in that particular niche. And he bought his biggest competitor. It was only a couple $100,000, still a big purchase for him at that time. So then he really owned the niche when he bought them, had them both. He started one, bought a bigger one, and he owned the space. And he's a bright guy. Let me put it this way. He's hungry for learning. He doesn't have the education that most people have, but he's smarter than almost anybody that I know because of his drive and determination. And he took this business, and I remember exactly where I was when I got the call. I didn't sell the one for $7,500 or $20,000. He did that on his own. Our company, Quiet Light, sold the one for $220,000, but it wasn't me. Right. It was somebody else. It was Darren. And I'm sitting outside. My son was he's a runner, so he was training, and I'm sitting outside the training facility, and I get this call, and he says, "Hey, Joe, Victor is ready to sell his next business, and he's looking for $5 million." Okay, sounds good. Let's introduce me, and I'll take it. This particular advisor had gone on to another venture. And so I get on the call with Victor. He's a great guy. I mean, I'd met him before and really got to know him. And we listed the business for $5 million. And within 3 weeks, we had 3 offers, and we were under contract for $4.8 million. We're deep in due diligence. We're deep in due diligence, and I get a phone call from him. I tell this story way too much. So if anybody's heard this already, too bad. I'm going to tell you again. I'm on the way back from a funeral. I'm driving back. I live in North Carolina in the States. I'm down in Georgia, about 4.5 hours away on a Saturday. And I get this phone call, and I'm like, oh, this can't be good. Victor's calling me on a Saturday. Clients don't call me on Saturdays. I'm like, this isn't good. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? What can I do for you? He's like, So I don't think I can do this. Like, okay, I understand what's going on. Well, I made $300,000 last month. I'm like, okay, that's good. Yeah. Tell me more. And he's like, this is what happened. This is what happened. And enough things picked up in the business where it was just growing incredibly rapidly. And then it took a big leap, right? So we did some numbers and some math, and I figured if he waited 6 months, the business was probably going to be worth about $8 million instead of $5 million. And he said, Joe, I just can't do it. I'm a single dad, and this is his legacy. And I think I need to pull out of this letter of intent. And the letter of intent that we had with Matt, the buyer, was non-binding and fully contingent on due diligence and a bunch of other stuff. So Victor could walk away in this situation, and he did just that. Well, it didn't take. Yeah, it was a ballsy move. That
is interesting. From homeless to being prepared to walk away from 5 mil or 4.8 mil. 5 mil.
Yeah.
That is ballsy.
It paid off. Yeah. And it didn't take 6 months. Another 3 weeks, and Matt, the person we were under LOI with, And 2 other buyers had made offers before, came to the table, and they bid it up to just under $9 million. So
wow.
in about 3.5, 4 weeks, Victor made an extra, almost $4 million there. So his hesitation was right. The business was just continuing to grow in a very special niche, the entertainment space, highly sought after, rabid customers. The most challenging part from that point, though, Matt, I got to tell you, was the process, right? Anytime you've got a transaction, whether it's a 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, or in this case, just under $9 million, it gets emotional for the seller. And one of the things about Victor is he's a good human. I really like to work with good humans, and that's why he and I are good friends now. There was a young woman that worked for him that made a difference in his life and helped him grow that business to the level it was. And she was also a single mom, and she was his, business operations manager. And selling the business was going to be a problem because then she'd need to go find another job. So he promised her that when the business sold, he would buy her a house. Well,
wow.
It's a big promise. He's a good guy. About 3 weeks before closing, it fell apart, completely off the rails. So he blew a gasket. When you're a month away from this kind of money, emotions run very high. And that's sometimes the toughest challenge as you're preparing a business and under contract and eventually getting it sold. It's managing your emotions. And so that my job, the numbers are easy, the package is easy, relationships are easy. The toughest part of what I do is managing people's emotions and expectations. And so we worked through it. We got it back on the rails, closed the business, and now he's on to new, believe it or not, bigger adventures where he's in a new space. It's not the content space anymore. He actually, you know what he did? He bought an e-commerce business from an Australian.
Wow.
From an
Really?
Australian. He bought it for it's a physical products business in the pet space.
Yeah.
And he bought it for $700,000. It was doing about $300,000 in discretionary earnings. So just a little over 2x multiple, a very good deal.
Nice.
And he has taken that business and bolted on, I want to say 9 or 10 other businesses at this point, and absolutely blown it up.
Wow.
His goal is to have a unicorn valuation, which is $1 billion valuation. He's got, if you were interviewing him, he'd have a big picture of a unicorn on his back wall.
Yeah.
He's very visual. And that's one of the things that's kept him motivated and focused is he's very visual with lots of whiteboards and goal setting. And, he's very good at, and that's part of the title of my book is Reverse Engineering Your Pathway to Success. It's because of Victor. It's because I learned that from him, because that's what he does. He, without a high school education, has said, how do I get to $1 billion exit? That's my goal. What do I have to be in order to earn that? He originally did it for 100 million, and he said, yeah, it's not enough. Okay. 9 figures is not enough. You're going to go for 10. All right. So, or 11, right? 10. It's just crazy stuff. But he did it, and he figured out how to reverse engineer that. And he's working on the recurring revenue model of his business, the diversification of the business, and just growing it to the point where he's going to eventually have that exit. But with everything else in life, as you know, Matt, we're not kids anymore. We realize that you got to be careful about not growing a business to your own level of incompetence, because then you just screw it up and it's not as valuable. So I think he may change his mind that $1 billion valuation, maybe not where he wants to be, just because he is a single dad and he wants to stay focused there more than anything else. And that life is worth more than, high stress levels and blood pressure and things of that nature when you're trying to hit $1 billion value.
Absolutely. That's an amazing story. One of the things that really stood out for me there too, Joe, is the value of having a really good advisor like you on board, both on the personal side. You know how you said, isn't it interesting? Everyone looks at what you guys do, and like you said, it's all about the numbers and stuff. But at the end of the day, that to actually make that deal work, it came down to personal stuff and a lot of mindset in a way. And you, in a way, helped him through that. But think of the It really stood out to me. The value of having an advisor on board. It was the difference between 5 mil and 9 mil in a pretty short space of time. I think, and obviously you guys get on well, so you're going to help him. Obviously, he's worked with Quiet Light for a number of years then, hasn't he? So you guys
Yeah.
are going to help him on this journey.
Yeah. Well, on his next journey, I'm his friend and I'll talk to him and help him all I can, but I'm not qualified to help him with $1 billion exit. I'm
No,
out.
no, yeah, but
But
well, the reason I bring that up is I'm kind of saying it to our community. Look, guys, this is what can happen. This can be your journey as you start to step it up. I know a lot of us in our community here in Australia of digital investors. This is this exact journey that you guys are looking for as you start out, buy a small site, sell it for 7.5 grand like he did, buy your next one, roll it up into 20 grand and then go to the 220 and then go to the big multi-million-dollar deal. But on that journey, don't be trying to do all this stuff yourself. When, especially on the exit side, you need good advisors like Joe on board. These guys are experienced. They know how it works and they can help you through the deals, not just finding you the buyers. And it just really stands out to me when you're starting out, because really his journey was quite quick, wasn't it? We're not talking a decade here or anything, are we?
No, I think we're talking from start to finish on that 7,500 before he hit 9 million. I think it's less than 5 years.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Done.
It's pretty incredible.
5 years. That is absolutely fantastic.
It's pretty amazing.
I think one of the other things that really stood out for me, and you're going to love this bit, Joe, because it leads right into your recent venture. But now I see the power of what we were talking about before, and that is your new book. Because one of the comments you made, this guy, Victor's strategy, he figured out it's all about selling that makes him the big money, selling these websites. So it's interesting to talk to you and hear about this, because Liz and I, we're buy and hold, and we're very open about that in general. So we love buying kind of quite semi-passive websites. We've got quite a business. We're quite busy, and we've got kids and family, and we don't really think about the selling too much, even though that's our background. Isn't it funny? But then, so even for me to interview you, and I didn't realize that before when you're talking about Victor, but that was one of his driving things. Just buy it, flip it, roll it up into the next big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And in his case, it was such a rapid rise that there's the most of the money was going to come on the exit, right? If you're less than 5 years old, most of the money is going to come on the exit. The buy and hold strategy is not a bad one at all. I like it, especially for content sites. When you've got semi-passive content sites, I think it's a beautiful thing. If I could just work with content deals all day long, that's brilliant. It's great stuff. The margins are wonderful. The workload is generally low. You just have to be steady and consistent at what you do, and buying and holding for the long run is not a bad idea. But you will exit someday. You will exit. You can't hold it forever because you are going to die. So you want to build a business that is going to be in great shape and in great form to pass on to your kids or to, an investor at some point. You're going to get tired. You're going to want to move on. You're going to look for your next adventure. That's the life of an entrepreneur, right?
And well, that's what I wanted to bring up. You used a term when you were describing Victor, and I think this will really open your eyes to give an alternative view to how Liz and I always teach the buy and hold and sort of the more semi-passive sites. And you use a term that he's an exitpreneur, and that's the title of your new book, isn't it?
Yeah. It's called I'm going to hold it up for you. It's so hard to pronounce and understand, but it's the Exitpreneur's Playbook. I picked a tough title, folks. Sorry, but it's all about, training. And that's hence the sports analogy. It's, if you're going to go out and do a 5K, most of us could get up and do it. We'd be okay. We'd survive it. We'd get through it. It'd be tough for a couple of days afterwards because we'd be real sore, but we'd get through it. Not like we would if we trained for it, though, right? We'd get a good time, would be in great shape. It would be fun and exciting, easy to do, would push hard, and we wouldn't have a whole lot of pain afterwards. And so I'm trying to teach people that will eventually exit their business to train for it. I'm sharing my experience there, a decade worth of experience, touching $500 million in transactions. I've got a couple of epic failures of my own, some pretty decent successes. I share those in the book. I talk about
Awesome.
Victor in great detail. And I think it's just really important to get as much information and training as you can. That's why I love working with you, because you've got, you're teaching, you're helping, you're educating more than anything else. And that's all this book is. It's education. And it's in a format that I've shared over in over 5,000 conversations, which, is a lot of detail and a lot of time. And I figured it was time to put it in a book so that people could just grab it and absorb it, at their own pace without feeling like they're drinking from a fire hose.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's perfect. And I think if anyone wants to read more about Victor's story and learn from Joe's vast experience in this game, make sure you grab yourself a copy of that Exitpreneurs Playbook, which is out now. It's just been recently launched. So grab yourself a copy of that. But I just want to say a big thank you, Joe, for sharing such an inspirational story and getting insights into this deal that I think are particularly important for our community to see that, hey, you can start out in 5 years, start out dead broke, build yourself up, but there is mindset. You got to set goals. That's another big thing that we teach here about having goals and an intention. It's one of our main keywords, intention. And you can run this right through to a $9 million sale. And now, as we just heard, Victor's probably going to go on and do way bigger than that, at least 8 figures by the sounds of it. He's already there. So absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much, Joe, for coming on today.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Matt.